Good morning, grade 12 students. In this video, we're going to talk about the cyclic evolution of the ovarian cycle. This is chapter 15, document 2. So, cyclic evolution of the ovarian follicle and ovarian hormone, and talking about the uterine mucosa. This figure is one of the most important figures in our lesson. This figure is showing the development of the follicles from primary, primordial to the tertiary, to the cavitary, to the Graafian, and the ovulation where we have the release of the oocyte. As you see here, from day 1 or from day 0 to day 13 or 12, just before ovulation, only one hormone is found, which is estrogen. So estrogen determines or it controls the follicular phase, the phases before the ovulation, just before the day 14. So only the hormone estrogen or estradiol is found here. Estradiol is responsible for the thickening of the endometrium as shown here. So the increase in the level of the endometrium where it reaches the peak at about the day 12 or 13, just before the ovulation, is responsible for the thickening of the endometrium here. So here you have to know that the thickening of the endometrium is due to the high level of estrogen during the follicular phase just before ovulation, and you don't have to forget the development of the follicle, which is responsible for this increase. So development of the follicle has an important role. While at ovulation we have the rupture of the follicle at day 14, we have rupture of the follicle, and during ovulation you have to be careful that we have an increase in the temperature in the female. So you can know that we have the ovulation occurs just when we have the increase in temperature. It increases a little bit above 37, 37.2 or 37.3. So here we have to know that after ovulation, we have the transform into the corpus luteum, the yellow body. The yellow body is responsible for the secretion of both hormones, estrogen and progesterone. So we have secretion of both hormone, estrogen and progesterone. These are secreted by the corpus luteum or the yellow body. Why? Which these hormones will increase at the end of the cycle, and we go back to the menstruation, to the menses, and the cycle repeats itself and so on. So here you see the thickening of the endometrium. We have the spinal formation of the arteries. We have glandular transformation, and this is because of the increased level of progesterone and estrogen during this phase, during the luteal phase. Okay, so this is an important figure in our lesson. So you have to know that during the development and the proliferation of the superficial layer of the endometrium, we have that stage where the layer of the endometrium will develop during the proliferation stage of the uterine cycle. It's due to the gradual increase in the level of estradiol hormone, which is the estrogen, during the follicular phase of the ovarian cycle. You have to know that the increase in the level of estradiol is due to the increase in the level of estradiol is due to the growth of the follicles. So the growth of the follicles causes the increase in the level of estradiol. This increase causes the thickening of the layer of the endometrium. So you have to know at the end of the proliferation stage, estradiol hormone will reach the peak, the maximum level, and this is due to the maturation of the ovarian follicles. So the follicles, they become mature and they release the maximum level of estradiol. Before ovulation, few days before ovulation, 2 to 3 days before ovulation, the level of estradiol, as you see here, the level of estradiol, it drops down, it falls rapidly. Why? Due to the rupture of the follicle. So due to the rupture of the Graafian follicle, the level of estradiol will drop just before ovulation, where the Graafian follicle is the major source of estradiol before the ovulation. So here we have the ovarian development, follicular development. We have primary, primordial, primary, secondary, tertiary, cavitary during the Graafian follicle where the ovulation will occur. And then we have the corpus luteum, yellow body, and so on. Pay attention here, we have two hormones that are called gonadotropic hormones. These will talk about them in specific in the next video. So LH and FSH. LH and FSH, what is the role of LH and what is the role of FSH? We're going to talk about them. FSH is called the follicle stimulating hormone and LH is called luteinizing hormone. So we will talk about them in details. What is the source of LH? What is the source of FSH? What do they do? And what is the role in the cycle of the female? But I have to focus on the ovarian hormones, estradiol and progesterone. As you see here, the phrase here, the follicular phase is mainly controlled by the secretion of estradiol, the one in green, mainly controlled by the level of estradiol, while the luteal phase is controlled by both estradiol and progesterone. Okay, if I want to link this, development of the follicles lead to the development or the increase in the level of estradiol, where it reaches its maximum just before ovulation. Woman major source is the African follicle, the major source of estradiol. This leads to the development of the endometrium and the thickening of the endometrium during the proliferative phase. Okay, and the thickening of the endometrium reaches maximum during the secretory phase, where estradiol and progesterone both they are secreted. You have to know that during the follicular phase, the cycle is controlled only by the estradiol, while during the luteal phase, it's controlled by estradiol and progesterone as well. Okay? And whenever the level of estradiol and progesterone drops down to its minimum level at the end of the cycle, we will go back to the menstruation and we will have menses where bleeding occurs. After about 6 to 7 days of ovulation, we said that the uterine lace is formed. So around the ovulation doesn't mean at ovulation, Muhammad. So around ovulation, we said that after ovulation or before. But to be more specific, the uterine lace is formed after ovulation, about 6 to 7 days. This is induced by high levels of estradiol and progesterone. What is the source of estrogen and progesterone? The one in blue and one in green, sorry, it's progesterone, and the one in red, it's the estrogen. So what is the source of estrogen and progesterone in the luteal phase? They are secreted by the corpus luteum, which is the yellow body. Okay, so the source of the hormones, the ovarian hormones, estrogen and progesterone during the luteal phase, it's the corpus luteum or the yellow body. And at the end of the cycle, there is no fertilization. What will happen? If there is no fertilization, the endometrium will be sloughed out. So the blood vessels will be exposed and then bleeding will occur. So we have sloughing of the endometrium if there is no fertilization. While this is the endometrium that we talked about last time, and sloughing of the endometrium will occur whenever we have menstruation, and menstrual cycle will occur when we have the drop in the level of the endometrium layer. While menstruation, whenever it occurs and the drop occurs, this will occur under the effect and the drop of both hormones, the drop of the level of both hormones, estradiol and progesterone. So whenever estradiol and progesterone they drop down, like this case, whenever they drop down, this at the end of the cycle, whenever they drop down here, so we have menses. Menses is going to be ready and it's going to start. So menstrual cycle will occur under the effect of the drop of both hormones, estradiol and progesterone. Why? Because the corpus luteum is transformed into the corpus albicans, the white body, which is non-functional, and the subsequent generation of this leads to the bleeding, which is called menses. So menses occurred under the effect and the drop of both hormones, estradiol and progesterone. So these are the hormones in the cycle. We have development of the follicles, hormones level, estrogen and progesterone, where they occur. They told you which hormone is this one, which is the green one. The hormone is estrogen because it's the one that determines the follicular phase. Whereas estrogen and progesterone, they are both in the luteal phase. where they are secreted by the corpus luteum before its degeneration into the corpus albicans here, the wide body, and the level will drop down and the cycle will occur again, again, and again. So the secretion of estrogen is in parallel in the follicular phase. So the level of estrogen becomes maximum when the follicle becomes mature. So when the follicle becomes mature follicle, Graafian follicle, we will have the peak. When this follicle ruptures and bursts during the ovulation day at day 14, the secretion of estrogen will decrease and it will increase again in the luteal phase by the help of the corpus luteum, which is the yellow body, which secretes both estrogen and progesterone. So the gradual transformation of the ruptured follicle into the corpus luteum stimulates, as I said, the secretion of both hormones, estrogen and progesterone. This secretion will reach maximum when the corpus luteum becomes fully mature. And then the degeneration of the corpus luteum into the wide body, the corpus albicans, will stop the secretion of these hormones. So here, this is the table showing the functions of both hormones, estrogen and progesterone. So estrogen, it has a role in the proliferation of the uterine and the vaginal mucosa, in the development and the amplification of this mucosa. And it has a role in the development of tube-like glands of the endometrium, development of the cervical glands, and it has a role in the growth and the increase in the number of blood vessels. Whereas progesterone has a role in stimulation of the gland secretion. It stimulates the gland secretion in the uterine mucosa and in the cervix, لأن عندنا cervix هي عنق الرحم. Development of the spiral arterioles, increase in the body temperature, and inhibition of the uterine contraction. So as a conclusion, what we have studied in this PowerPoint or in this video. In this video, we determined that the growth and the development of the superficial layer of the endometrium during the proliferation stage of the uterine cycle, they are due to the increase in the level of estradiol. This increase in the level of estradiol due to what? Due to the growth of the ovarian follicles. So whenever we have growth of the follicles from the primordial to the primary to the secondary to the tertiary to the quaternary and to the Graafian follicle, which is the most important source of estradiol, the level will increase. When we have the rupture of the follicle at the day 14 at ovulation, this level will decrease. We said that end of the perforation stage is reached when the estradiol reaches the peak, whenever we have the peak, well, which is due to what? Due to the maturation of the ovarian follicles, and it will be the Graafian follicle. Okay, this peak is reached just before ovulation, before the rupture of the Graafian follicle into the corpus luteum. Okay, so you have to know also that the follicular phase is determined by the level of estradiol, estrogen, and the luteal phase is determined by both hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Keep in mind, I didn't mention any of these hormones, which are called the gonadotropin hormones, estrogen, FSH and LH. Here I didn't mention any of these. So next time we will talk about LH, about FSH. What do they do? What is the source of LH and FSH? And what is the relation to the ovulation, to the increase in the level of estradiol, and what is the role in the development of the endometrium. So during the proliferative phase, we see that we have increase in the thickening, and this increase will reach its maximum during the secretory phase under the effect of both hormones, estradiol and progesterone. We said that the uterine lace is formed about around 6 to 7 days after, and pay attention after the word after ovulation. This is induced by what? By the increased level of estrogen and progesterone during the luteal phase, which are secreted by the yellow body. Whenever this yellow body will degenerate, the level will decrease. While at the end of the cycle, no fertilization, we have sloughing of the endometrium. What the meaning of sloughing of the endometrium? The endometrium will be exposed to bleeding, and we are exposed to high pressure, and this will lead to bleeding. Okay, this will lead to the menstruation under the effect of a drop of levels of both hormones, both ovarian hormones, estradiol and progesterone. This is due to what? Due to the transformation of the corpus luteum, the yellow body, into the non-functional white body, which is called corpus albicans. So at the end of the cycle, no fertilization, superficial layer with endometrium is sloughed off. And this graph is very important to, for example, relate them to relate the ovarian cycle with the uterine cycle and the level of estrogen and progesterone. Okay, thank you.